Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials on any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com.
In DDD technical language, we are going to use this terminology. Okay. Okay, slowly I'll introduce about each of this terminology with an example, don't worry. So what is an aggregate? You need to understand. Aggregate is the central business object within your bounded context, and that defines the scope of consistency within that bounded context. Let me show you with an example. Let's take an example of order management. Like say for any e-commerce website, there will be a module called as order management. Okay. So there will be a class called as order and a corresponding table, order table in your database to store all the order related information. Order ID, let's say, will be the primary key. Right. Now, one order can have multiple order items, right? So one order can have a list of order items. So maybe in my database corresponding to this collection, I may have another table, order items table, where order ID will be the foreign key, and one order can have multiple order items. Suppose if this is the one. In order management domain, right, I have these two classes, let's assume. Now, what is the main class here? Order. Tell me, can an order item exist without an order? In business language, order item is an item which belongs to an order. Then order item cannot exist without an order, right? See, order item should have a foreign key, order ID. It should belong to some order always. An order item cannot exist or does not have any meaning without an order, right? So let's assume that I want to add a new order item to order. What I can do is, let's say I can have a method here, add item in the order class itself, which will take order item, and here I'll have a logic to add the order item. Now tell me, suppose if you are writing order management application, let's assume that your application will get a REST API call to create an order, and also a REST API call to add an order item to an existing order. Let's assume that in your code you are writing order controller, and you have a method, let's say add order item, which will take order item. Now let's assume that a REST API call is coming, it is sending a data for order item. Now what you have to do according to your logic, in your database you have orders table and order item table. Let's assume that a request is coming to add an order item to an existing order. You want to add an order item to an existing order. What kind of logic will you write in this method? Do you write a logic to add a row into order item table directly? What is the best practice? You will never write a logic to directly add order item to order. What you might do, first you will fetch the order into your code from the database, and to that order you will call, on that order you will call add order item. So it will be added to the existing list of items. Then what you do, you persist the order. The whole state will go to database, right? So what will happen whenever you try to save? Either everything will be succeeded or everything will roll back, right? So you will never directly insert order item into database. It's not a good practice. You always propagate all the changes to true order, right? So what I mean to say is, here order is a main class which has reference to other classes in your application. There should be one, you should be able to identify one root entity. Order is an entity, right? Entity means what? Domain class which has a table in database, we call it as entity. So you should be able to identify one root entity in your bounded context which has reference to other entities, and this root entity should be the main entity. So such root entity we call it as aggregate. Aggregate is a main entity of your bounded context, and any changes to database persistence should go through this aggregate only. You have to identify one root entity, or we also call that aggregate also as a root aggregate because it's a root object, right? Any changes in your bounded context should be going through this, right? Any doubts till now? What is an aggregate? In your bounded context, there might be a lot of entities or domain classes like order item, etc. You have to identify one root entity, right? Any changes, if at all, has to be propagated. Any state changes, if at all, has to be propagated to database. That should be done by modifying this root entity. If you identify such an object, then that is called as aggregate, or we also call that as a root aggregate. Any queries till now? Here in this case, order object is a root aggregate. Any queries? Because going on further, it is going to get complicated. Once this is not clear in your mind, it will get complicated later. Let me know if you have any doubts till now. I hope if you're not speaking, then I hope everything is fine. Now, let me talk about the next thing. Aggregate, you understood. Aggregate is nothing but the principal identifier of your bounded context, the root identifier, right? And it defines the scope of consistency. That means whenever you are persisting, you will persist order object. Either everything will go to database or everything will roll back. So it defines the scope of consistency. And one more object, entity. Entity objects have their own identity. So in this case, order is having its own identity, So order is an entity. And order item, does it have an order item ID also? Yes, of course, it's having, it might be having its own primary key. So this order item also is an entity, but can it exist without order? No. So we call this order item as an entity, but order is an aggregate. So what is the difference between aggregate and the entity? Both of them will have corresponding tables in database. Order item also has an identifier. Order also has an identifier. But entity cannot exist without an aggregate, right? So entity objects have an identifier of their own, but cannot exist without a root aggregate. They do not have any meaning, right? So entity objects are nothing but secondary identifiers of our bounded context, right? So now you understood what is an aggregate and what is an entity. So in our bounded context, there might be one root aggregate and multiple entities. Entities, do they have their own identity? Yes, but they do not have any meaning without an aggregate. They always have to be associated with some aggregate. And what are value objects? Value objects do not have identity of their own, right? So let me just show you an example. In my auto loan management, originations is one bounded context, right? In originations bounded context, what we do? We have a logic for creating new loan applications, right? So loan application is a root entity in this case. Application or loan application is aggregate. And one application belongs to one applicant, right? So applicant details will be an entity. It will have its own database. It has its own identifier, applicant ID. But applicant without an application doesn't have any sense, right? So that's how. So entity has its own identity, but it cannot exist independently. It always belongs to some aggregate. And every loan application also has a loan amount. Loan amount does not have its own identifier. It is just a value object. It is used to hold some values, right? So now the next step is identifying the domain rules. So I told you what are the steps. First step is identifying your aggregates or entities or value objects. The next step in implementing our domain model is identify the domain rules. What are all your domain rules? Example of a domain rule, I will tell you. If you are implementing order management system for some applications like Swiggy. Swiggy is a popular application, right? So in Swiggy, there is some business rule. Let's say you are ordering some food item from restaurant 1. In same order, what you can do? You can add one more item belonging to same restaurant, right? But if you are trying to add another food item in another restaurant too, will it accept?
Hey viewers, are you looking for formal training on SRE practices? Take our SRE program. This course will teach you how to successfully implement site reliability engineering in the modern day 24/7 services. Kickstart your SRE training today. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
No, right? The business rule says all the items in one order should belong to one restaurant. So whenever order item is getting added to order, you have to make sure that the business rule is satisfied. These are the business rules, right? Okay, so you have to identify the business rules to be implemented, and you have to write the logic for domain rules or business rules. That's the next step. So domain rules are pure business rule definitions. These domain rules are also modeled as objects. They assist the aggregate for any kind of business logic execution within the scope of business context. For an example, whenever somebody is applying for a loan, in our originations module, whenever somebody is applying for a loan, based on the state to which state he belongs to, we want to do some compliance validations, right, on the applicant. So there might be some logic to apply some compliance rules, right? Such kind of logic can be written in its own class, and it helps our aggregate in applying some business rule. So we have to identify such domain rules and write the logic, right? And the next step in designing our domain model is to identify commands and queries. Command is nothing but any request which is coming to my bounded context that will modify the state of aggregate, right? So open a new loan account is a request which is coming to my application. Let's assume a request is coming. Open a new loan account. So what, a new loan account, new application has to be created, new loan application, right? So state of an aggregate is changing, or modify the loan applicant details. That means we have to change my aggregate, right? So any request for our application which results in state change, we call such requests as commands, right? And take an example. I want to view loan account details. This is a query. We want to fire a query and retrieve the details and show them. So any such request which will result in querying the state of an aggregate, we call it as a query. View loan applicant details is also a query operation. So commands and queries represent any kind of operations which will either affect the state of aggregate or query the state. So commands are requests or operations which change the state of my aggregate, and queries are operations which will retrieve the state of the aggregate. Very simple, right? Then you have to identify some events. Whenever a state of your aggregate is changed, you want to let the other bounded contexts know that something changed. So you have to raise an event. So in your bounded context, you have to identify what are all the events. For example, in my originations bounded context, whenever a new loan application is opened, I want to raise an event called as loan application opened. Whenever it is approved, loan application is approved, I want to raise an event called as loan application approved. Like that, you have to identify what are all the events you want to raise so that other bounded contexts will be notified. You have to identify. Then you have to identify the workflows or business processes within your business domain. That is nothing but sagas. Sagas are business processes or workflows, right? Take an example in our originations bounded context. What is a workflow? First, somebody will submit a loan application. Then what? Loan application has to be validated. If loan application is not valid, then reject the loan application. The workflow will end here. Okay. If loan application is valid, present the terms and conditions, then the user might accept terms and conditions. Once the exception is done, a loan should be approved. Okay. Once loan is approved, loan account has to be opened, right? So actually opening a loan account, etc., is in another bounded context, servicing bounded context. So once loan account is opened, this business flow will work, will end. So actually one business flow or one saga might be actually involving more than one bounded context also. This is a business workflow within your application, right? So one saga may actually be comprising of multiple bounded contexts. In this case, once loan is approved, opening a loan account has to be done by service. Then our saga ends, right? So you have to identify sagas like this, right? So these all things you need to identify, and you have to write the code for all this for implementing your domain model. Okay, I will actually give you one example which I'm going to show you code also, right, step by step. So my domain which I'm going to introduce right now is cargo tracker domain. Okay, cargo tracking is my domain. So let us see what it is. Cargo tracker domain is a problem space which I want to solve, and in that problem space I identified subdomains. Booking domain, suppose if any customer comes to DTDC, they have to book a cargo, right? Cargo or courier, whatever it is, right? Booking is one domain. Okay, let's assume that one customer wants to book a cargo from Bangalore to Delhi. So source is Bangalore, destination is Delhi. And whenever a cargo is booked, again, there are different ways to actually deliver that. Maybe the fast delivery will be done in one day. Payment may be more, the charges may be more. But if the customer is okay to deliver that same cargo in 1 week, the charges will be different, right? So whenever we are actually booking, we also should take the booking type also. If it is a fast delivery, then we have to route our cargo fastly. If it is okay as slow delivery, then routing will be different, right? So actually there is one more module in my cargo tracking called as routing module, where routing module will be maintaining multiple voyages of all the cargos. Let me tell you step by step. Okay, these are the 4 domains. Actually, I'll explain you step by step. Booking is a subdomain. What it covers? What are the functionalities it covers? Booking of cargos. Then once a cargo is booked, it has to assign the route to cargo. What do I mean by a route to cargo? Let me just draw and show you. Let's assume that a cargo has to be going from Bangalore to Delhi, and every booking will have a source and a destination and a deadline for delivery. Deadline is 1 day or 2 day or whatever it is. So now, if this is the booking which we are taking, then I want to do a routing. Routing can be like this: Bangalore to Delhi, Bangalore to Pune. I am having one vehicle moving from Bangalore to Pune, and another vehicle might take that from Pune to Mumbai, and then from Mumbai to Delhi, and then from Delhi to customer address. So this is one route. Totally, this is route. So this is a bigger route, is it? Maybe via road. But if the deadline is very less, I can directly have Bangalore to Delhi via flight. So basically, once booking is taken, the route has to be assigned to the cargo by the booking module. But there is one more module called as routing module, which will actually be responsible for managing the voyages. Actually, our cargo company will be having multiple vehicles traveling from one location to other location on defined dates and times. So the routing module is having some functionality to maintain voyages. It will have a list of all vehicles from which place to which place they are going and what are the time. All such information will be managed by routing module. And since it has this information, for this module, if I give source and destination and I'll give deadline, it is having a logic to actually give me an optimal route, right? So basically, who will actually decide the route? Routing module. But my booking module has to actually invoke routing module, get the route, and then assign it to cargo, right? So that is the functionality of my booking.
Hey viewers, our Master in DevOps engineering program can help you to hone the skills necessary to succeed in high-level DevOps positions. So, what are you waiting for? Enroll now and earn certification that show you are keeping pace with today's technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
We'll take care of booking cargo and then assigning a route. Remember, to assign a route, booking module does not know how to calculate the best route. It will invoke routing module and ask, hey, give me the optimal route. Then it will take the route and assign to cargo. Then modification of cargo, cancellation of cargo, these all are taken care by booking subdomain. Routing, as I told you, this area covers all aspects of cargo itinerary, including what? Optimal itinerary allocation for cargoes based on the route specification. So this routing module has to give the optimal itinerary. And again, voyage maintenance of all carriers, right? This is taken care by routing. Then next module is handling module. See, as the cargo progresses along its assigned route, it will need to be inspected or handled at various ports. So what? Suppose if Bangalore to Delhi is the total route, first the cargo has to be loaded in Bangalore. Loading in Bangalore is an event. What type of event? Handling event. So a cargo is handled in Bangalore. How is it handled? By loading the cargo. And what happens once it reaches Pune? It has to be unloaded in Pune. That is one handling activity. So basically, whenever my cargo is handled, it is loaded at Bangalore, unloaded in Pune. Again, it is loaded in Pune, unloaded in Mumbai. So like that, whenever my cargo is handled at a particular location, that information has to be added into my database also, right? So that somebody can track it later, right? So that thing can be done by a handling module, right? How my cargo is handled, that logic will be present in handling module. And next module is tracking module. So this is the module with which the customers will interact, and it will provide you tracking information based on how it was handled, right? These are the 4 modules which I want to implement. Now, so I showed you about my problem space. What is my problem space? Cargo management. I identified subdomains: booking, routing, handling, tracking, right? So now I want to design an application for it. How should I design? Is one application sufficient for all? If I decide to go with a monolith, then what? All the subdomains will be written inside a single monolith. See, on the left side, you have the problem space. and you are mapping it to one bounded context. This whole is one bounded context, and each domain will become a module, right? So if I want to design a monolith, I'll be having one bounded context like this. Or if I decide to go with microservice based approach, each domain will be mapped to one bounded context like this, and each bounded context may be having its own database. Okay, so I have to decide what is my bounded context. Will I have one single bounded context, a monolith, or four bounded contexts? So I have decided to actually have four bounded contexts. I want to implement them as microservices, right? Okay. So now we have designed our bounded context. We identified, okay, I want four bounded contexts. Now what is the next step? I have to implement my domain model, right? So as I told you, implementing your domain model consists of identifying your aggregates, aggregate identifier, entities or value objects. You have to identify the commands, queries, and events, right? So let us see step by step for our use case. How do I identify the aggregates and all? See, for our four bounded contexts, I have identified the aggregate. Cargo is going to be an aggregate in booking module, because that is what we are booking a cargo, right? Right. So cargo will be my aggregate. And in routing module manages the voyages of all the vehicles. So I identified a voyage as an aggregate. Okay. And for handling module, handling activity is one aggregate. For tracking module, tracking activity. So we have to sit with our business analyst. Based on the business functionalities, we have to identify one aggregate, which will be the root entity. It actually is an aggregate. Any changes should go through that root entity. We have to identify. So how to identify? It is based on your business. You have to sit with your business analyst and identify what should be your root entity. That should be your first step. So identify. The next, you have to identify the aggregate identifiers. For my cargo, whenever I book a cargo, booking ID is a unique identifier for my cargo. So booking ID is my identifier. And for voyage number is an identifier. For handling activity ID. Similarly, for tracking activity, tracking ID. So these are the aggregate identifiers. Okay. Then we have to identify the entities within our bounded context. As I told you, what are entities? Entities are objects which have identity of their own, but cannot exist without an aggregate, right? So let me tell you here, within cargo aggregate, as part of booking process, the booking clerk needs to specify the origin of the cargo. What is the origin of my cargo? Bangalore. So origin, it is mapped as an entity object. So to represent an origin, I have origin location. Location is a class which I created. Location ID will be its own identifier, but it does not have any meaning without a cargo. So in this case, location is an entity. So for cargo class, I have origin location, which is of type location. So cargo is an aggregate and location is an entity. And the same location entity may be required for all tracking module, handling module, etc. Right? So you have to identify the entities. So value object. Value object means what? It does not have an identity of its own, and it always belongs to some aggregate. So for my cargo, whenever I'm booking a cargo, booking amount, it does not have any identifier, right? It's a value object. And for every cargo, I have a class called as route specification, which contains the origin location, destination location, and arrival deadline. Right. I create a class called as route specification, which contains all these fields. This also does not have any identifier of its own. So this is another example of origination. And in my cargo, I have one more class called as itinerary. One itinerary can contain multiple legs. Let me tell you. So suppose if a cargo is booked from Bangalore to Delhi, and this is the route assigned: Bangalore to Pune, Pune to Mumbai, Mumbai to Delhi, Delhi to customer. So in this case, this whole thing is an itinerary. Bangalore to Pune, Pune to Mumbai, this all is a itinerary. And Bangalore to Pune is one leg of itinerary. Pune to Mumbai is another leg of itinerary, right? So every cargo, once it is routed, it will have a itinerary plan, and one itinerary has list of legs. Is it? So itinerary also doesn't have any meaning if there is no cargo, right? So itinerary also is an example of value object. So like that, I have identified various value objects, right? So I'll just show you the full diagram of my aggregate. See this diagram. Cargo is a route aggregate. Okay, just see this. Cargo is a route aggregate. Booking ID is the aggregate identifier. Then booking amount, cargo has a booking amount, which is a value object. See, whatever is in this color is a value object. And every cargo will have an origin location, right? Here it is. And this is an entity, because in my use case, I want to have I want location to have its own identifier. This is an entity. And I said cargo will have itinerary, right? Itinerary. Itinerary has list of legs. These are all value objects. And my cargo has one more reference to a route specification. Route specification, it contains origin, location, destination location, arrival deadline. This is also a value object. And cargo has one more class called as delivery, which contains the delivery status. Right? This is also a value object. Right? So I identified the aggregate, entities, and value objects, and I have designed like this. Okay. This is going to be my cargo aggregate. Now, I'll ask you a simple question. Tell me, why should I create a separate class like route specification? Why can't these three fields be written inside cargo itself? Of course, I could design my cargo class to contain origin, destination, arrival deadline. But if I'm a domain expert and if I see your class, I will see your cargo class with some 20, 30 fields. I do not understand the meaning of it, each of them, right? Suppose if I create a route specification class like this, just by seeing its name, I can understand, okay, this class contains some information about the route, about the origin, location, destination, deadline, etc. And if I see a delivery class, I can just understand at a high level, okay, this contains a delivery related information. So actually, whenever you are creating your own aggregate, make sure that it will not contain only primitive types. Make your aggregate as domain rich. Split your aggregate into small subclasses. which will actually make your class domain rich. Just by seeing your cargo class and just by seeing the field types inside your cargo class, I should be able to understand what all information it has, right? So always better to have such value objects created in your application, right? Similarly, in my handling activity, these are the value objects and entities. So you have to identify these things, right? Okay. Now, aggregates we have identified, entities, value objects. Then next step is identify the commands and queries. So command is a request that will change the state within the bounded context. Any request that changes the state of your aggregate is a command. Query is a request that requires the state of the bounded context. It queries. And events are the one that notify the state change. So see this diagram, you will understand the domain model operations. So on my booking module, you can see this one first. Book a cargo. What does this operation do? Book a cargo. It has to create a new cargo object, right? It is modifying the state. So book cargo is a command. Whatever is in this color is a command. Assign a route to cargo. Okay, once a cargo is created, we have to assign a route to it. This is a request. So whenever assign route to cargo is done, it has to modify the cargo and assign route. So actually, whenever assign route to cargo is called, a booking module will make a REST API call to routing module to get the itinerary for the route. Okay. So who is actually giving the itinerary? Routing module. So whenever assign route to cargo is called on booking module, it will make a REST API call and get the itinerary. Then cargo is changed. So this is one more command. And this view cargo details, what it's doing, it will just query the state of the aggregate, viewing. So this is an example of a query operation. Similarly, here, get itinerary for route. Here, this is actually.
Hey viewers, trying to get into DevSecOps? Enroll for our DevSecOps certified professional programs and earn the certification that shows you are fit for these technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
Querying the database, or it is not modifying, right? This operation in routing module is a query. And maintain voyages. That means it has to actually update the voyages in the database. So this is a command, right? Now, whenever booking is done, new cargo is created, right? So my booking module will publish an event called as cargo booked, right? And whenever a cargo is routed, it will publish an event called as cargo routed. Now, whenever a cargo is routed, see a tracking module or tracking sub-bound context will subscribe to cargo routed, right? So once it subscribes, whenever an event comes, cargo routed event comes, command has to be executed. What? Assign a tracker to the cargo. For this cargo, a tracker ID has to be generated and assigned once the cargo is routed. So once an event is received, this results in a command called as assign tracker to cargo, right? So here we are using messaging for communication between the booking module and tracking module. And whenever somebody wants to view or track the cargo, that is the query operation, right? Similarly, here in handling module, these are the commands and queries. So whenever cargo is handled, that means loaded or unloaded, What will happen? It will publish an event called as cargo handled. For cargo handled, booking module is subscribed. It will update the cargo status. And tracking module also will update its database so that it can show the tracking details. So handling module will publish an event called as cargo handle, and that is subscribed by both, right? So these are my domain model operations, commands, queries, and events. These are all the events, commands, and queries which I want to implement in my application. Just see this diagram for some time. Is that clear? Okay, now sagas. Sagas are nothing but business workflows, as I said, right? So in booking, what is the booking saga? Cargo has to be booked. Once cargo is booked, it has to be routed, right? Once routing is done, tracker has to be generated for it. So then booking saga is complete. Handling saga. Once a cargo is handled at some location, it has to be inspected, right? And then cargo has to be claimed, cargo has to be settled. This is again business workflow in my handling. So like that, I have to identify the sagas, right? Then I have to design my domain model services. Domain model services are used for two primary reasons. How does external parties interact with my domain model? That is through domain model service. Domain model services enable bounded context domain model to be available to external parties through well-defined interface. That means, can I say a REST controller? Whenever somebody makes a REST call, right? Then the state of my aggregate may change. So somebody external party will be able to talk to my aggregate. Will be able to get the state of the aggregate or modify my aggregate through a well-defined interface. So such type of services, whatever I wrote, RESTful services in this case, they are called as inbound services. Take a request into my system, inbound, right? So domain model services are of various types. One example is a REST API. If you are exposing a REST API, any request which is coming in, it's an inbound service. REST services or REST controllers are nothing but inbound services. What is its purpose? To expose your domain model to external world. You are having your domain model. How do you expose it? Through the REST API. That is inbound service. Okay. Now in your application, you have some state and you want to persist it to a database, right? State of your application, state of your domain model, you have to persist it. So what type of service you need to write? Inbound or outbound? Outbound. So in your application, you need to write outbound services, which will take the data out of your application. Or maybe you want to publish the state changes to external bounded context. So maybe you will publish some events. So you have to write domain model services. One is inbound service, outbound service, and some other application services. We'll slowly see all of them, right? So let me start showing the implementation. Step by step, I will show you the implementation. So here is my cargo application. I have actually created one solution project for booking and start project. I'll start working on booking. Step by step, I will show you how I will design my cargo application, right? So this is a normal Spring Boot application, nothing related to Eureka, nothing right now. A simple plain application I'm going to implement. Okay. So if you see in this project, I have already created some packages. Actually, by seeing your packages itself, you should understand this package will contain what, right? So today, as we have 10 minutes, I'll just tell you very fundamental about this. Tomorrow I'll continue with rest of the code, but let me introduce you. In our application, I have multiple domains, is it? Booking, routing, handling, tracking. So one bounded context might be dependent on another bounded context. And one bounded context might be publishing an event, which other bounded context might be receiving it. So I might be having some classes related to event classes, which I publish. Don't you think that event classes are shared objects? Same class is required when publishing, and same class is required while subscribing or receiving. So normally in our bounded context implementation, there might be some shared domain classes. So here I have created com.witler online is my base package, shared domain dot model dot events. These event classes are shared because one module might publish the same event object, another module might receive. So here is one simple one, cargo book event. Whenever a cargo is booked, this is the object which will be published into RabbitMQ. Okay. So cargo booked event, for every event, I'll be having an associated data. I'm representing that with cargo booked event data. Here is the one, cargo booked event data. The data associated with cargo booked event. If you see here, it is just having only the booking ID. That's all. Similarly, cargo handled event is one event class, and it also has cargo event handled data. It contains the data whatever is required at the time of cargo handling. Similarly, whenever cargo is routed, this is an event which will be published, and cargo routed event data will contain the event related data which is required for routing, maybe in this case only booking ID. So these are the shared domain classes, right? And one more interesting thing is that, just concentrate, a very interesting thing. Here I have a class called as transit edge and transit path, right? So let me just show you the diagram. In a route, suppose if I'm booking a cargo from Bangalore to Delhi, my optimal route, let's say this is the optimal route. So here Bangalore to Pune is one transit edge. Pune to Mumbai is one transit edge. These all are transit edges, and this whole thing is a transit path, right? So basically, in my routing module, say this is my routing context. In my routing context, according to my business terminology, I'm using a terminology called as transit path. Transit path is a class which I have, and it has list of transit edges. Okay. So according to my business terminology of routing module, these are the classes which I created. Now, my booking module, what it has to do, once a cargo is booked, it has to get the optimal route. So it will make a REST API call to routing module and ask it to give the optimal route. So what routing module will do is it will return transit path. One path which contains a list of transit edges. Okay. Now the question is, booking module will get transit path data. Now, in booking module, shall I use same class transit path here also in booking module? Shall I use the same class in my logic? That means this transit path is a domain model. I am sharing this transit path between both bounded context. Is it a good practice? No. If I use the same domain class given by routing, there is a form of tight coupling. That means, what if in routing module later we change, either add some fields or delete some fields or change the structure of this transit path object? What if we do? Will it not affect booking also if I'm using transit path in my business logic? Yes. So I would say the changes made in the domain model of routing module is corrupting. It will corrupt the domain model of booking. So using a shared domain class is not at all a good idea. Avoid sharing as much. So see here, don't use this transit path when you're writing business logic, right? So in booking module, what we have decided is we'll have a separate class called as itinerary. And one itinerary has list of legs. So I want to use itinerary and list of legs in my business logic instead of using transit path. So there should be some converter which will convert transit path to itinerary. That we call it as anti-corruption layer, because if we are using transit path itself in our business logic, tomorrow if routing module changes the structure of transit path or so, that is corrupting my booking module domain model. So to avoid corruption, we need to write an anti-corruption layer. Because see, whenever I make a REST API call, definitely it gives me transit path only. I don't want to use transit path in my business logic because my business logic will get corrupted. So I need to write anti-corruption layer, which will convert transit path to itinerary, transit edge to leg. That mapping has to be. I will show you how to write an anti-corruption layer so that both modules will be loosely coupled, right? So here in my shared domain model, of course, I'm having transit edge and transit path, but in my business logic, whenever I use, I will not be using it. I'll be writing an anti-corruption layer to transform it, right? My business logic will not change. That is the idea. How to implement that, we'll see it tomorrow. This totally today is conceptual. So only one exercise you have today to complete this DDD. Okay, go through this document and complete this DDD. I have given you in the chat the location of the files to be downloaded. This is the one, micro way to learn. This is different. I have given it in the chat. You can again see the chart I am giving you. Oh, actually, I have seen one message right now, Satish. What is recommended approach to dealing with UI in microservices? Oh, again, Satish, there are patterns like micro frontends are also there. Micro frontends are also there. So the front end also you can actually split it. You can split the front end also into microservices. Right, micro front end, that is also a pattern which we can use on the front end. Yes. Okay, Satish.
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.